On March 3, 2021, the 17-year term of Viktor Mokhov's imprisonment expired. He is known as the Maniac of Scopen, who kidnapped teenage girls and held them captive for almost 4 years. It would seem that such a monster should not have been released, or at least he should have become an outcast of society. But TV channels began to invite him to various TV shows. Journalists sought to be the first to interview him. Mokhov practically became a star. He gladly shared the details of his terrible crime, and told how the girls lived in his captivity. This story took place in Russia in the 90s, but it is still being discussed in all countries of the former CIS. Viktor Mokhov was born and lived in the town of Skopin, Ryazan region. In the eyes of neighbors and colleagues, he looked like a respectable citizen. He worked at a local factory as a mechanic and was considered one of the best workers, repeatedly won in professional competition, and was awarded certificates of honor from his superiors. Until 1991, he was a member of the CPSU. He didn't get along with his family. At 50, he was still living with his mother. In 1995, Mokhov decided to build a basement under a metal garage, which was located on the backyard of his house. Initially, it was planned to use this room as a cellar to store blanks in it for the winter. Construction was carried out until 1999, that is, 4 years. And by the end of it, the locksmith's plans had changed. The man turned the underground structure into a real bunker for his future victims. The finished basement consisted of 3 compartments. 1, a special purpose for living, and 2 additional. The walls and ceiling were concrete. Ventilation was installed inside, electricity was supplied. Thickened metal doors are installed between the compartments, locked with bolts from the outside. In the large compartment, Mokhov placed a bunk bed, a chair and a table. He later used this room for a meeting with his captives. The whole structure of the bunker was arranged in such a way that the sounds from the inside could not reach the surface. The exit from the basement was masked with a steel sheet and a clever mechanism with magnets. Mokhov met his victims in 2000, on September 30th. They were 2 girls, Ekaterina Martinova, who was 14 years old, and Elena Samokina, who was 17 years old. They were returning from Ryazan to their native Skopin. Mokhov offered to give a ride them. Together with Mokhov was his friend. As it turned out later, she was his accomplice. It was 25-year-old Elena Badukina, a native of the city of Ryazan, who introduced herself as Alexei. The woman really looked like a man. Strong build, short hair, sportswear. She also had the appropriate habits, so the girls did not arouse suspicion. Katya later told during the investigation.
We went to a disco in Ryazan. There was a holiday, faith, hope, love. We wanted to go hitchhiking. Trolley buses were running, but Lena and I decided that we would go by car. And the car stopped. Viktor was driving. Mokhov is his last name. There was a boy sitting next to him, but it turned out to be a girl. We did not know. It's just that she looks very much like a boy and introduced herself as Alexei. They offered us a drink, we agreed. We quickly got drunk and lost track of time. There must have been something in the vodka. When the car stopped, we found ourselves in some area, fenced with a wooden fence. It turned out it was Mokhov's house in Skopin.
At the same place, Katya's first rape took place. He couldn't handle Lena, his body failed him. Mokhov with Badukina forced the girls to go down to the basement. Even in their worst dreams, the girls could not imagine that they would have to live here for 3 years and 7 months. All this time, Mokhov alternately and in various forms raped his victims. During this time, Lena became pregnant 3 times. The monster raped her even when she was on a long-term pregnancy. She gave birth to 2 boys and 1 girl. But the girl was born after the release of the captives. Unfortunately, the baby was born dead. The boys were born in the same basement, in unsanitary conditions. Katya helped Lena give birth. At first, a suitcase served as a cradle for children. A few months after the birth, Mokhov took the children from Lena and threw them into the entrances of Skopin's multi-story buildings. When he did this for the second time, the girls threw 2 notes into the diapers asking for help, but the rapist found them and threw them away. To suppress the will of the girls, the maniac threatened them with murder, demonstrating a hunting rifle and a knife. He beat them with a rubber hose, pricked them with a fork. In case of disobedience, the sadist deprived his captives of food and water, turned off the light, cut off the air supply through the ventilation, sprayed tear gas in the bunker, even when Lena was pregnant and when she had a baby in her arms. If the captives behaved submissively, he treated them well. Over time, he began to release them one by one to the yard. Sometimes they were in the house. Interestingly, Mokhov didn't live alone, but with his mother. She said she didn't know anything. Once she saw Katya in the courtyard of her house, asked her son who she was, and he replied that it was his girlfriend who came to visit. I believe that she was aware of the deeds of her son. Perhaps she was afraid of him, so she was silent. In the spring of 2004, Mokhov settled a tenant in his house, a student at the medical school of Skopin. The man then asked Katya to help him seduce a new girl. The maniac introduced Katya to the student as his niece. He wanted to slip a powerful sleeping pill into her wine, but the plan fell through. Kate took the opportunity, managed to throw a note asking for help into one of the tenant's audio cassettes. She discovered her. The note read,
"Victor is not my uncle. He's been keeping us in the basement since September 2000. He can kill us and you. Take the note to the police."
The student immediately went to her native Novomishurynsk and the law enforcement agencies turned there. Mokhov was summoned for interrogation to the prosecutor's office, where he denied all charges. At the same time, the task force searched Mokhov's garage. But they could not find any entrance to the basement. But a few days later, Mokhov himself came to the investigators and confessed to everything. The offender showed where the entrance to the bunker was. So they found the girls. Despite such testimony, the investigation was not easy. The girls had to tell the investigators everything so that they could qualify Mokhov's actions. But psychologically it was very difficult for them. According to the investigator, Mokhov's problems appeared in his youth. He from childhood lived under pressure in an authoritarian family. The father was convicted of molesting a neighbor. Mother is a responsible secretary, a domineering woman. Mokhov did not develop relations with the opposite sex. He didn't have children. At the age of 50, he realized that life was passing him by, and considered himself flawed. Mokhov could not have a romantic relationship even in his youth. When everyone around him had girls, he was alone. Comrades unsuccessfully tried to introduce Viktor to their former girlfriends. One day, Mokhov read a story about how the maniac Alexander from Kamenvyatka Glades set up a sewing factory under his garage and kept slaves there. It was then that Mokhov decided to get his concubines. According to the results of a forensic psychiatric examination, the maniac was recognized as sane. City Court of Skopin found Mokhov guilty on several counts, and sentenced him to 16 years and 10 months in prison in a strict regime colony. His accomplice Badukina was also soon arrested for 5.5 years. Gradually, both girls regained their health, resumed their studies and started families. Katya Martinova even wrote a book, Prisoners of the Underground. In an interview that Katya gave to Komsomolskaya Pravda, she suggested that Mokhov would commit another crime after his release. As she said,
"Such people do not change. I think he will definitely attack someone else, rape, and maybe kill. Such people need to be isolated from society forever."
The second victim of the maniac, Lena Samokina, to avoid publicity. For 15 years she has not communicated with Katya. She got married, teaches English and lives in Ryazan. She couldn't have any more children. While Mokhov was serving his sentence, journalists repeatedly visited him. They wanted to interview him. The colony workers became interested in this prisoner, and wanted to know what exactly he had done. The conversations that took place were recorded, and some of the recordings were even made public. Mokhov said that he did this because he had no luck with women. He said that he was going to release the captives sooner or later, but he could not decide when exactly to do this, because he understood that he would be imprisoned. And he was afraid of responsibility. When asked why he chose such a sophisticated method, Maniac replied that it happened by chance. Personally, I categorically do not believe in it. Why then did he build a bunker and thought of everything so that he looked invisible to others? Besides, Katya and Lena were not Mokhov's first victims. 6 months earlier, he kidnapped 13-year-old Yelena Malikova and locked her in a bunker. He abused her for 2.5 weeks until she managed to escape. The leadership of the colony, where the offender was serving his sentence, gave him a negative characterization. It was indicated that in the mindset he was secretive, cunning and deceitful. In his speech, he does not repent, and does not realize the social danger of his deed. In one of the interviews, Mokhov said that he would like to find his children. He wonders how their fate turned out. Fortunately, the boys are protected by the secret of adoption. I hope they never get to know their biological father. As for me, Mokhov should not have been released. And how do you think? Write about it in the comments. I will be very interested to know your opinion.